Hi, everyone, and welcome to ELI on Air, the weekly ELI Talks interactive broadcast where we speak with interesting folks from across the Jewish spectrum about issues of Jewish religious engagement, literacy, and identity. My name is Miriam Brousseau, and I'm the program director of ELI Talks, and I am excited to be here today with Rabbi Jeremy Fine from the Temple of Aaron in St. Paul, and my trusty sidekick Esther Stanowitz, who is going to be helping out the conversation online, so feel free to be in touch with her. And as always, these conversations are totally interactive, so feel free to send in your questions right through the video here. There should be a little box over on the side to help you do that. And we'll also be accepting questions over Facebook and Twitter, and just use the hashtag ELI Talks, ELI Talks, and we will catch those questions and ask them live on the air for you. And with that, Esther's going to meet you online. So you will not see her in the broadcast here, but she is always with us.
See you there.
All right, and with that, we'll jump right into our conversation with Rabbi Fine, who is actually an ELI Talks speaker. Gave a beautiful talk that compared some of the issues of the rabbinate and the synagogue to the NFL draft. So, Rabbi, can you kick us off? Tell us a little bit about yourself, and maybe also give a synopsis of your talk for those who haven't maybe had a chance to watch it in advance of this conversation.
Sure. Thank you, Miriam. First of all, it's a pleasure to be here and to be working with you guys again. I had a wonderful experience. I found out firsthand the amazing job of editing that the ELI Talks does, and had a great time. It really pushed me to think and outside of some of my comfort zones, and I really appreciated the opportunity. I just wanted to quickly mention that I saw Matt Barr's speech last week, so he did a lot of shout-outs. I'm just going to shout out to my wife and my child, but I'll be doing some product placements throughout. I thought that was maybe a one-upmanship to Matt, who's a great guy. So I'm here. I'm in St. Paul, Minnesota. It's my first or second job, however you look at it. I was in New Rochelle, New York for a year at a wonderful synagogue, Bethel congregation in New Rochelle. And I'm here now as the associate rabbi at Temple of Aaron. It's a great place, an up-and-coming place, a place with tremendous amount of tradition and history for change and innovation, and more importantly, reaching a diverse population. We're a D-sized synagogue in the conservative movement, which means we have over 750 family units. We have over 900 actually, and that in Minnesota, in comparison, there are two conservative synagogues that are larger than us. So, which shows the high affiliation rate with synagogues in the Twin Cities area. It's been a pleasure. I'm from the Midwest. I'm from Chicago. I often speak about sports with my congregation, as that is my alter ego. I write a Jewish sports blog called thegreatrabbino.com, and frequently make fun of their losing franchises here in Minnesota as the Blackhawks. I don't know what the kind word of saying beat the Wild in the playoffs, and that was a lot of fun as I wore Blackhawks paraphernalia on the bima, and it was great. So having a great time here, and we're doing great work, and just excited to be a part of some national organizations that are doing some great innovative thinking and thought in the Jewish world.
Awesome. Were you a Cubs fan in Chicago? Speaking of.
Oh God, no. We don't. My wife, in our ketubah, we added a line that thou shalt be a Cubs hater and White Sox fan for the rest of your life. It's actually a great story that I should share with the world right now. My great-grandfather came over to this country. He went to Wrigley Field, and there was a sign that said "No Jews or dogs allowed."
Wow.
Since then, my family has been avid White Sox fans. 2005 I was actually in Israel, but it was probably the greatest year when the White Sox won the World Series. We are hoping to get back to that glory soon, and we're huge White Sox fans.
Amazing. Well, I'm married into a family that loves both teams. I don't know what to say. I'm like, but that's an incredible story. The White Sox didn't have that sign on outside their
well, Wrigley Field was Wrigley. The Cubs were Tribune and Wrigley owned by not so pro-Israel, especially at the time, pro-Jewish people, men, and the White Sox have had a Jewish owner pretty much my entire life. So it's been a very different story, I think, on the South Side. And as I like to say, you know, eventually Cub fans should realize that if they want to be losers their entire life, that's fine. But I have no intention of doing that.
All right, nice. So your talk, your ELI talk, draws very heavily on sort of lessons and metaphors taken from the NFL draft specifically. So can you say a little bit about this comparison between the NFL draft and becoming a rabbi in a congregation?
Sure. First of all, I think the NFL draft today, I'm a huge sports fan. The NFL draft is probably my favorite day of the year, a day of hope. And I think that unlike baseball and basketball, where you kind of know where your team stands, and very rarely does a team come out of nowhere, the worst team the year before in the NFL can sometimes be a playoff team the following year in the NFL. So there's so much more hope and belief on that day. And so I also draw the quarterback as like not the manager, but someone kind of running the team. And in the spotlight more than maybe some of the other teammates. In a synagogue, I feel that's true often, not all the time, but often that's the rabbi. There's a whole team working, but a lot of it falls back onto one person, even if a department that they are not fully in charge of is failing. There's also certainly not to the degree of spotlight, but they're the face of the franchise. Synagogues are often made or broken by how that rabbi performs or is able to get others to perform, right? Not all the best teams win because they have the best quarterback, but sometimes that quarterback's able to get the most out of their players. Trent Dilfer was not a great quarterback, but won a Super Bowl in Baltimore because he was able to get the best. The rest of the team worked so well. So it doesn't need to have the best rabbi in terms of, you know, speaking, preaching, pastoral care, but able to get the best out of sometimes their entire staff, which is important. And it's not just football. I think sports are an amazing way for us to really look at life and to look at what's going on with humanity and human reaction. I got that teamwork bone, the ability to work with others from my sports days. That is not something you learn in rabbinical school. That's not something you learn by being a congregant. That's something you learn often on the sports fields. I was privileged that my mother was a gym teacher and my father was a big sports fan, and that was something that was instilled in me. It's not just the athletic pieces, which was really important to me, but the lessons you can learn from sports to take into whatever profession you do are immeasurable. So the synagogue, like any other profession, needs teamwork, especially in a large synagogue setting like I'm currently in, and sports play a large role in some of those analogies.
Mm-hmm. So I just want to take a quick moment. We've had some people join recently. We are taking questions live, so if you'd like to submit those right here through the video, you can do that. Or do so on Twitter using #EliTalks. So I was recently in Seattle and I learned this term, the 12th man, referring to there's the guys on the field actually playing the game, and then there's the fans who are sort of referring to them as the 12th man, really sort of brings them into that team. So I guess if you were going to extend the metaphor of rabbi as quarterback, synagogue as franchise, who is the congregation? What role do they play, and how do you sort of build that in?
Well, there's different types of congregants, right? The congregation can't be you have your workers, your dedicated laity. We have some extraordinary lay people who have their hands in so many things and in a positive way. You have congregants who just come for Rosh Hashanah and that's it. You have congregants who are dedicated to their children's education and feel their education is either past or not as important, or So The 12th man, though, I would say the average congregant, the person cheering on and rooting and being happy for the synagogue, and when called upon can give time, money, resource, expertise when needed. All synagogues should be filled. You need the carpenter in the synagogue to help out with things like that. You need a Jewish educator who works in your synagogue who's offering a class, so the synagogue can afford and better itself and not have to rely on just outside contractors or educators. You need to come together, and that builds community and respect for what's going on in the building. Mm-hmm. So the 12th man is the congregant, but it's the congregant maybe for worker. It's the congregant who needs to share the good message. We rabbis always joke about, we deal with complaints nonstop. People come to me all the time to say, I can't believe you do what you do because I heard so-and-so complained about this, right? It's true. Some things are grand and some things are less than grand. And but at the end of the day, the congregants who need to be, I don't want to call it cheerleaders, but they need to be promoters of the good work you do and not just critical when you weren't able to get to something or the synagogue wasn't able to accomplish what its main goal was for a whole slew of different reasons. It could just be as easy as time and money, and it could be as complicated as personalities.
Mm-hmm. So we're living in an age where this idea of synagogue affiliation and denominational affiliation aren't necessarily a given, right? There's a lot of I hesitate to reference the Pew report because it's been so over messaged, but the Jews of no religion, the people who aren't attending synagogue weekly, who aren't necessarily invested in a communal institution, but may connect to Judaism in other ways. Can you just say a little bit about that and sort of what are some of the challenges and opportunities there? How do you approach this age of unaffiliated Judaism?
Yeah, so Minnesota again has a high affiliation rate, but I grew up in Chicago, I lived in New York. I think it's sad. I think the synagogue, we have so many people who come to us who want us to perform life cycle events, who want us to educate their kids and don't want to, forget about payment, that's a different story, but belong to the synagogue. But that's what you need. You don't join a health club to join the health club. You join the health club for the benefits that you get, and for us to rely on everyone to do us a favor and everything's for free. I mean, the birthright problem is a big problem. Is that my generation thinks going to Israel costs $0, which is not true, and it's problematic. We're working on a trip right now, and we're trying to figure out how we can make it affordable. And even for some who said, I went on birthright for free, $500 to go to Israel is absurd. That's crazy, right? Forget about all the good things that it does to go to Israel and how great the money is spent. We've built a culture that things are free, that our parents will pay for our J-Date subscriptions. What was the other thing that was free recently? PJ Library. So PJ Library is an amazing program. I think it's fabulous. We get the book every month. We reread it to my daughter all the time. One of the best Jewish programs out there. But I wonder, will the next generation Jews be excited to continue a Jewish library, or will they say, if I don't get the Jewish book for free, it's not worth it? Judaism doesn't exist for free. No religion exists for free. We have to be able to support it. So in terms of the synagogue is incredibly important. I did not in any way go to JTS or rabbinical school looking to be a pulpit rabbi. I was dead set on day school and a backup maybe Hillel. I found my love for the synagogue working, interning, but really working at this small synagogue in Amsterdam, which is the most Amsterdam, New York. Sorry, not Amsterdam, Holland. That would have been a fun job too. But Amsterdam, New York, just really some of the most wonderful people you could ever meet in your life. Who 36 people on their mailing list, 20 of those people probably don't live nearby. 15 of those people don't live nearby or accessible. They're just on the mailing list, and we made minyan every Shabbat. I mean, that's crazy. That's unbelievable, and it's a testament to their dedication to their synagogue and their Judaism and what a synagogue does when it's functioning well. And from there, I kind of grew this passion. I had a great experience in New Rochelle. Was ready to move back to the Midwest and be a part of a little bit of a larger synagogue and have a little bit more opportunity. But we need the synagogues. They are incredibly important. Our rabbis are incredibly important, and that's not. I hope that doesn't sound self-serving. My colleagues work hours and tirelessly and endlessly to make sure that people have Jewish avenues to explore. Mm-hmm. As for form of domination, I'm actually on the other side. I believe strongly in denominations. I think there is something incredibly special about the conservative movement. I think there's something very special about the Orthodox movement. I think there are things that are special about the Reform and Reconstructionist movement as well. I find myself as a more right-leaning, old-school kind of feel conservative rabbi in a new kind of platform of delivering those messages. So I clung to some of the older rabbis at the Jewish Theological Seminary, like Rabbi Roth, Joel Roth, and find myself hopefully someone who's trying to continue tradition. I think conservative Judaism, for me personally, and I think is the best platform for that. And I also think it is the most honest, head-on with modernity, with tradition, fully intact conversation. And that's why I find myself as a conservative Jew. It has nothing to do with being in the middle of anything. It has to do with, I think it's the best message and the most honest with the world and tradition.
So I want to hone in on something else that you said about having worked in these smaller congregations where people were so devoted to making that community happen that even with a smaller population, they made a minyan happen every week. And that resonates very deeply for me because I come from this relatively small city in Wisconsin where there was one synagogue and everybody went there and everybody had to get along. And now I'm here in Brooklyn where there's literally 50 synagogues within walking distance, and it's overwhelming choice, and I don't go to any of them, right? So I guess my question is, how do you make the case for, first of all, your synagogue in particular, but also for any synagogue? How do you make that argument? Especially when you're not just competing with other Jewish institutions, but with absolutely everything else, or with the sort of do-it-yourself version of Judaism with indie minions or home services and kavuran and things like that. What is the special thing? What is the added value that a synagogue offers that you can't get anywhere else?
I think a deep level of community that is ongoing for full life. So let's take a Solomon Schechter school where my parents, I think, found their deep connection with families and carpool, and then a lot of them went to the same synagogue. But in a wonderful experience at my Solomon Schechter in Northbrook, Illinois, where I know your husband and family are all were a part of. So, but that ends. That ended in 8th grade. Now there's a conservative high school, so it ends in 12th grade maybe. Some people leave to go to public school. The synagogue is full life. Birth, we joke, diapers to diapers, right? So it's a home for everyone, for all ages. It does everything, rich, hopefully rich and deep learning, different opportunities to find spirituality. Our generation, my generation, is so big on the quick fix that I think we sometimes lose focus. Rabbi Neil Gilman once said to me in rabbinical school that a great prayer experience is 2 minutes. You have to be in that. If you can get 2 minutes out of a 3-hour service, you've done something really, really special. So we're results driven, and we want to hear God when we walk into the synagogue. That's not always going to happen, and that's okay. The other piece is just community in general. I mean, what better way to explore yourself, Judaism, connection to God, to come together, to share meals, to be a part of people's lives at meaningful moments. Jewish organizations, they're vast now. There's all sorts of Jewish organizations, from outdoors camping to talks online that all hopefully 7 people are listening to right now, or 700. You never know. So the synagogue is all-encompassing of all of that. We just need to figure out more avenues and platforms to be able to encompass that. I think communities need to share resources much better. Not necessarily synagogues, but the overarching. This came from a wonderful meeting with all of the synagogues and agencies in St. Paul, talking about this teen mifgash, where we're bringing Israeli students over to work with our teens on talking about water in Israel. Great collaboration and outside the box thinking, where we can give our kids an Israeli experience, but and also give the Israelis an American experience simultaneously, social, and our kids will inevitably see them next time they're in Israel, because that's how you build long-lasting community and friendship, and that's being in part with the rest of the community, but also stemming from the synagogues as well.
Mm-hmm. So I want to hear a little bit about despite all of these offerings, synagogue attendance and affiliation is waning, and there are these other sort of other movements coming out of the woodwork. I'm thinking specifically of Ron Wolfson and the whole relational Judaism sort of perspective, and this idea that maybe the role of synagogue is to facilitate relationships among its congregants, and not just about content delivery or programming and those kinds of things. So what, if anything, do synagogues need to do differently in order to maintain the membership that they have, or to attract new people, or to bring people in? What do these sort of waning levels of affiliation say to you?
Great. So the conservative movement has done a lot of thinking around Ron Wolfson's book, which is somewhere in the background, I think. So his and I've been privy to some of those conversations and presented at a conference on some of it. And we do. I mean, I wrote this article. I call it the 100 Project. You can find it on my website or through a Jewish journal, where I this year I went on an exploration of taking 100 people to coffee, 100 people invited for Shabbat dinner, and 100 phone calls just to say hello. And I'm close. I haven't had 100 people for dinner yet, and that has been just due to timing on Fridays. So that interpersonal connection, building stories, getting groups, maybe even rethinking about the Chavurah movement and what that means inside a synagogue. I know my parents were big fans of that when it was going on, and it faded. And so building these communities, these connections, we're really focused on that here at Temple of Aaron. So I think it can happen inside the synagogue, developing those relationships. What was the second part of that question?
Just anything else that you feel that synagogues need to do differently.
Right. So I actually think that there's a disservice when we go away from tradition. The quick fix is to put a guitar and a piano and say, oh, we're going to have great music. Not all synagogues are doing great music. Some are. BJ inspires people through, BJ in New York inspired people through music. Mm-hmm. I would say, from what I hear, Rabbi Sharon Brous inspires people through music. I have never been inspired by a musical instrument inside a service personally, and I don't know that it's something Temple of Aaron has to really discuss. I'm not sure that we're doing music so well, and we've begun that discussion. What does that mean? Not just to do music, right? That's a quick fix. How do you do it well? A call back to tradition, making your kitchen a little less observant kashrut is never going to get more people in the door. It might for an event, but it's never going to last. I look to my home synagogue often as a pillar for keeping tradition. It's a fairly right-wing conservative synagogue, but they have congregants who want to daven, They show up for shul on Shabbat. They build a Shabbat community, and it's packed. Growing up, I didn't understand when I went to a synagogue that wasn't full on Shabbat. So maybe I'm a little naive to say that that can happen and should be happening everywhere. But Moriah Congregation in Deerfield is a great example of a place that has stuck to tradition and hasn't given up some of its values in order just to let more people in. We have so many options, as you said, so many different synagogue options that when people want to find what people can find what they're looking for, especially in larger communities or even medium-sized communities. You can find what you want here. We have 4 conservative synagogues. So, I think that we need to hold on to some of the tradition. There's a reason Orthodoxy works. There's a reason those shuls are packed on Shabbat. There's a reason people make a commitment to mitzvot and to kashrut and to Shabbat. And it's not because they did anything hokey or had any shtick. Shtick only works, I think, in synagogues when it's not shtick anymore. So BJ in New York, I think, isn't shtick anymore. I'm not someone who daven there frequently, but I have been there. Karlbach Synagogue in New York, it's not shtick anymore. It's not shtick. It's beyond shtick. It's what they do. Finding the quick fix, I do not feel is the answer for the synagogue. You have to stand for things and have a traditional mind to be able to preserve. And then figure out the way, okay, this is who we are, this is the box in which we work in, how can we use that box to send our message and make that more accessible, as opposed to just opening every door because everyone asked or we think it's a fun idea.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I really love that line from your talk about thinking outside the box but inside of traditional Judaism. I think that's it's a nice line, something interesting to consider. We had a question come in actually about what you talk about the synagogue community and all of this and the whole life cycle, but I think there are still people who feel like they don't quite fit what synagogues are looking for in their congregants. There's so especially those who are of any age who are unmarried or don't have children, or there's all kinds of folks who are sort of outside of that norm. So the question is, how should synagogues work to include people on the margins of any age or from any background?
Great. So 2 things. One, I've been partaking in the Jewish Outreach Institute webinars, and we're a JOI Big Tent synagogue now, and really excited about that. And we're trying to explore what does that mean to involve people around the periphery and not the typical heterosexual with a child family that comes to synagogue, and healthy and make a good living, etc. So we're trying to think about that. However, I do think that some of that barrier is internal. I don't think I've ever been to a synagogue that's actually not a welcoming place. But because I might not be familiar, or because I'm sitting next to someone who's not exactly like me, I'm not able to see past that this might be a place. I have found most rabbis that I have met to be welcoming, wanting to open their doors, willing to have honest conversations, especially the people I graduated with. I mean, I haven't been to every synagogue around the country, but certainly my peers, my classmates, we talk about everything, and they're almost all opening their doors. Almost every synagogue now is doing something for young professional, whether it's learning or social or both. To allow people to understand that the synagogue is not a place for Hebrew school, and it's not just a place for the men's club and sisterhood. It's a place for everyone. Everyone can access prayer. Everyone can come into the synagogue and sing Adon Olam. You don't have to be married. You don't have to have kids. You don't have to be any particular person. You just need to. People need to open up more and understand that part of coming into a new community is opening up yourself, whether you're an introvert or whatever, is opening up yourself to the reality that this is for everyone. The rabbis did not create a system. Synagogues were not implemented to only appease people with children or who had more time on their hand to come. They're for everyone. And I don't know one rabbi who would tell you anything different, or one rabbi who wants there only to be an age medium of 55, right? So come in and enjoy. Open up your heart, open up your mind, open up your realities to this is an experience. You might not like the taste at first, but a few people have come to me who have found Synagogue, and you know, the story is I always thought it wasn't for me, and then I found a community here, right? That's everyone's story at a synagogue, unless their father or mother was a rabbi, right? That's everyone's story in my synagogue. I found it at Hillel, on campus. I found it after Kaddish. I found it because I was new to the community and just went. I found it because there was an engaging clergy member. Everyone finds synagogue. It's not, and everyone can. So I encourage those people who think it's not for them to go, and not go once and not go twice. Go for a long time, and then tell me how you feel. Go for a whole year and tell me how you feel. And if you don't feel welcome, send me to that rabbi and I'll have an honest conversation with him or her.
I think that's actually a great place to close off our conversation. I hope that some of the folks watching will heed your call and maybe try something out that they thought wasn't right for them, and open up their horizons a little bit. And I'm very curious to see about the future of the synagogue and where all of these conversations will go. And so we'll bring Esther back into our broadcast. She's been hosting the conversation online, and want to say a huge thank you to you, Rabbi Fine, for your beautiful talk and for sitting with us today and digging a little deeper into some of those ideas. Please, the conversation continues online. Twitter, Facebook, you can find us everywhere. We'll be back next week, actually, with a couple of more rabbis. We'll be talking about how we talk about God with Rabbi Dan Ain and Rabbi Shai Held, and should be a great conversation. So I hope to see you there next week on ELI on Air. Thank you again to Rabbi Fine, to Esther Kostanowitz, and to all of you for watching us today. We'll see you next week. Bye,
Thank you.